Like many of my podcasts, I'm going to start off with a story, and like many of my stories, it starts off with several years ago. I walked into the office of a new customer, a new client. They had engaged me over the phone. I was visiting their office for the first time. I'd found their place. It wasn't that hard. Got a place to park. Looks legitimate. Wasn't a fancy building, but it wasn't a dump either. Nice warehouse district, older building. Said, hey, this could be really cool. Walked through the front door and saw what I perceived to have one time have been the reception area. There was a reception desk. Somebody looks like they had been recently working there, but it actually looked like the inside of a messy office. It was piled with papers. There was unopened mail, but there was nobody there. Okay, well, fine. So I'm going to start looking around. Well, I'm in a room that I see a sea of cubicles. I said, well, there's nobody, but there's not a human being in there. As a matter of fact, the lights weren't even on. And I looked to my right of the door where I had walked in. The reception was on the left, and on the right was a fish tank. I thought, we're going to see a little personality here. So I went over to look at the fish tank and noticed that the water was a third of the water was missing. And yes, there was dead fish in the fish tank. It had probably been a lovely fish tank at one time. Somebody must have cared about it. But today was not that day. So what am I going to do? Well, I can stand here for a little while. I can maybe call my contact to see if they'll come out. But no, I did what I usually do is I just wandered in a little bit deeper. Oh my goodness. Have you ever seen the shows on, the reality shows on television about the hoarder houses? Yes, this is what I did. I was in a hoarder house. Out of the 16 or so cubicles that were in the middle of this bullpen, 8 of them literally were full of things that needed to go in the trash. There was actually bags of trash in one cubicle. There was dead equipment in another one. There were ancient pieces of gear. I mean, ancient by my standards, and I've been around a long time, just stacked up. It's like they didn't know what to do with it. Why don't you bury them in the warehouse? Well, I would find out later why that didn't happen. But anyway, it was kind of scary. Now, eventually I did find my client. There were several offices, windowed offices on the outside of the bullpen. That's where they were occupying now. These were tasteful. They were clean. They were tidy. They didn't reflect the chaos that I saw when I walked into that front door. But my point of all this is I just walked across their threshold onto their turf, and it's been 15, almost 20 years, and I'm still talking about it. It was a scary experience. And if it was the only time something like this had ever happened to me, that would be one thing. But this is just the most exciting example because I get to say dead fish over and over and over again. So my question for you today is, what is your dead fish? What is it that people see when they walk across your threshold that tells them, oh, maybe these are not the people I want to work with? Let's talk about that.
Welcome to your weekly dose of uncommon sense, helpful insights, and tough love. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. The Intentional Success Podcast comes to you through the generous support of Mertz Crew.
Mertz Crew helps top AV companies book quality AV freelancers. Your choice, your rates. We handle contracts, insurance, and payments. You save time, cost, and reduce risk. Start today at mertzcrew.com.
Now on to the show.
If there's anything I talk about the most, it's got to be marketing. Marketing is the thing that most people just don't get. They don't understand. It's not their skill. It's not their trade. It's a lot of voodoo. We don't know how to measure success. My clientele, my audience knows so little about marketing that they still laugh at the joke. And it's an old joke when I say, yeah, man, half the money I spend on marketing is a waste. I just don't know which half. That's the oldest joke. That joke's 120 years old, and people are hearing it for the first time. That's how little they know about marketing. Bless their hearts, it's not their fault, right? They're in business. They're in my industry. They're in our industry because they love technology. They like getting shows done for their customers. They like the excitement of all that. Hey, we're in show business. We're not in marketing business, which is fine if people just keep finding you and word of mouth is working for you and and everything. But if it's not, what's the point of marketing? Well, the point of marketing is to create an opportunity for a conversion event. A conversion event is when somebody chooses to engage with you. They may reach out for an information call, set up a meeting, send you an RFP, some sort of inquiry that asks you to engage back. Sometimes we create conversion events by going out to our audience and inviting them to something. In other words, we rather than finding us and then choosing to engage, we find them and ask them to engage. Whatever it might be, that engagement is what I call the threshold. Now, this is metaphorical, but it's also quite literal. One of the best things many of you could do to create engagement with a prospect is to get them across the threshold of your building, invite them to you. And the reason I bring this up is back in the early days at Alfred Media, when we had moved into, well, even our second building was a lovely building. When we moved into our third building, it wasn't a show place, but it was very nice. It was out in the woods. We had our own property. It was a nice little drive up. You go, oh man, I am in the right place. And all of a sudden there's this beautiful building. And you walk in the offices, lovely reception area. There's the bullpen with the offices around it. Everything looked very, very intentional, very planned. And people would walk in and go, oh my God, I didn't realize this is what you were like. What does that mean? What did they think we were like? Well, they thought, sadly, that for whatever reason, because we were in Texas, that maybe we lived on a ranch and our offices were in the back of a stable or something, or we were in some industrial warehouse somewhere. But no, we were in a lovely suburb, actually surrounded by fine homes on a commercial property, and it presented very, very well. And what we learned was when we were talking to somebody who didn't quite believe we were up to the task, the only thing that was going to fix that was to get them across our threshold. And this became this idea of inviting people to visit you. Oh, my goodness, pay their way. If you've got a prospect that wants to do business with you, they're coming into your town, send them an airline ticket, have the car service pick them up at the airport, take them out to a nice steak dinner, but get them across your threshold. And you get them across your threshold so they go, oh my goodness, you guys are legit. Let's sit down and talk doing business. Now, the problem with that is that some of you have dead fish, right? You don't feel you built an office warehouse to do work in, not to bring clients into. And I get that. I understand that. We don't always want to show people where we work. And that's a shame. It should be our goal. Long term, your goal is have a place where you are proud to bring your customers and clients in to learn more about you and engage with your team. It is the best thing you will ever do. It's a very, very smart investment. But today, you might not feel that way. You may not feel ready for that. Maybe that's the next office. That is the goal. Now we can go back to what is the metaphor of a threshold. A threshold is the place where when that person walks across the threshold, they are now in your space. They're on your turf. They're in a world that you control. Years ago, when I was working with particularly systems integration teams and sales teams and live events folks as well, the holy grail, the goal of all of their sales and marketing plans was to get a meeting at the customer's office. And I just didn't understand why. Why do you want to meet at the customer's office? Well, our office isn't always that pretty and their place is so nice. And we don't want them to know that we're not as big a company as they think we are. Well, they know you're dealing with Fortune 500 companies. Of course, they know you're not as big as they are. That's silly. if you get them into your building and they see how you work and how you interact with the technology that you're going to sell them, that's going to impress them. But here's the thing. Most of the systems integration companies I visited, and every one of the live event companies I visit, has that lovely little boardroom with the big screen monitor and the the mic system on the table and all the things, and it doesn't work. There's a control panel that doesn't work. There's something that doesn't work, and somebody's always having to crawl underneath the cable and fish an HDMI cable up through there so that somebody can plug in their computer or whatever it is. And that's kind of embarrassing. So sometimes the dead fish is your boardroom. So where should the threshold be then? If you're not presentable at home, and you should fix that, then you need to be presentable somewhere else. Show site, for instance. If you're in the business of getting shows done, what better place to show off who you are than on a show site? Invite your clients to a show site. If you're working with end clients, most all of your end clients would be happy, unless this is a super secret meeting, for you to invite one of your prospects in there, and they will chat with them and they will tell them how wonderful you are. They won't say anything bad about you in that environment. And while that is technically their show and their turf, the fact is you're making it a nice space. And so you can walk people backstage and show them what it's like to work with you. And here's where our presenters get ready. And here's where we help them review their slides. And here's how here's where we attach their microphones to them so that we can, get them on and off stage properly and help them understand what it's like when you are taking care of their show for them. So that's a great way of doing it. But again, the marketing has to get them across your threshold. Early in my sales training days, I would teach people about invitations. Okay, an invitation. It doesn't have to be come to my kid's birthday party. An invitation is just simply reaching out to someone and saying, hey, we are doing this. I'd love for you to come. People should be able to turn down invitations. Okay. The point of the invitation is not the thing. The point of the invitation is the invitation. So extending invitations, here's a little secret. Here's a little trick we used to play. Can we all agree that if you guys, it's Tuesday afternoon, and if one of your salespeople came in and said, hey, I've got a really hot prospect coming in on Friday. I told them we're having pizza and cake day, and we're going to give an award to an employee, and they're welcome to come join us and learn what we're all about. Can you guys make that happen? Can we agree that if you needed to do that, you could do that? Okay. You could take the trash bags out, clean up the kitchen, order a cake, get some pizza in there, make up an award, hand it to somebody, and put on a dog and pony show for a prospect. You can invite somebody across your threshold. The place doesn't have to be pristine. It has to be happy, lived in, functional. How clean do you have to make your house before company comes over? I know. We go through the same thing. We've got to clean. We get it as clean as we think it needs, as we can see it being clean. It'll never be clean enough for a clean freak. Guess what? No matter how nice your office is, it's never going to be as perfect as somebody wishes it were, but it will still impress most people. So extending invitations, creating opportunities to get people onto your turf, onto a show site. Maybe sometimes we use site surveys for that, but you don't really control that environment. Into your office building, at a company event, anything at all where you can say, here's who we are, here's our hospitality, and here's how we create a space where we can service you, talk about your event, expose you to our experts so that we can do more business together and make you feel confident that we are who we say we are. And sometimes what we're saying is, hey, we're a good old-fashioned local meatball AV company that cares about its employees and customers. We take good care of our gear. We're very earnest about our work, but we have a modest office. Okay. Who's going to begrudge you that? So thresholds. Find your dead fish. Go right now, walk out the front of your office, walk back in, close your eyes, think for a second, open them up and look. What do you see? If you were walking into your space for the first time, what do you see and what does it cause you to do? Is there a way? Is there anybody to greet you? I mean, most of us don't have receptionists anymore. If we don't have a receptionist anymore, how are we greeting people? How are people known? Who's jumping up to come see who came in and shake their hand and welcome them in? Okay. Or do we assume, many of us have locked doors now. You have to hit a buzzer. God forbid you might be a salesperson calling on us, trying to sell us, janitorial services without an invitation. We make it really hard to interact. What are you doing to alleviate that? Think about your threshold. On your show sites, and this is something I'm very serious about, we have to think about our backstage, our front of house, any place where we, our technicians and our equipment, have the opportunity to interact with the client for the show or anybody else for that matter, are as professional and accessible as possible. We're talking about safe places to walk, opportunities to set materials down and discuss it. We need access to the individuals that we need to talk to. We can't build giant barriers around us where we're hiding inside of equipment. And the only way for the customer to talk to us is to go put on a headset out in the front of house so they can communicate with you. You need to be accessible. You need to be welcoming. Your backstage needs to be neat and tidy. It needs to make space for the true customer, which is your show event presenters, right? They're backstage. Do they feel comfortable? So that becomes that curtain, that space you walk through from front of house to back of house as a threshold. Do it correctly. So think about the thresholds in your life. Think about what you can do to improve the experience of people who may be coming at you with low expectations, and so that you can impress them and still be who you are. Doesn't have to be spotless, does need to be intentional. And that's probably the best marketing advice I can give you in a capsule in the time we have here. So once again, thanks for listening, and please, please go clean your fish tanks. See you next week.
If you liked this episode of the Intentional Success Podcast, please leave a review and don't forget to like and subscribe. This podcast has been brought to you by the helpful folks at Mertz Crew.